Welcome back to Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, giving you company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're trying to talk about all the things that is happening right now across the world, across the globe, and in the UK. Well, there is a lot of buzz going on, and there's a lot of talk going on right now because in case you haven't noticed, well, the lockdown easing in England is to be delayed by another 4 weeks. I mean, did we see this coming? Well, we did. This is something that we've foreseen. I mean, scientists have been pressuring the government not to put the lockdown in these particular dates, and it's great to see that the government did take the initiative and they did delay it for the safety of the people. And with that regards, though, like I said, these are things. These are just things that we have expected. We did expect this. The government, like I said, was about to do this, and in that relationship, they have been starting to do something like this. And for me, it's a great step because what we're trying to do is we are not trying to fall back into step one again, phase one again. What we're trying to do is we're trying to move forward, and if that means if we have to move a little bit more slowly, I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't want to go back to square one just as much as you do. And this is just. You can see the way the thing is happening right now. People might be a little frustrated. It's justifiable. You might be a little annoyed as well. I mean, I'm a little sad that this has happened, but at the same time, we have to look at the overall good. So we'll be talking about all these things going on along the show. We'll be talking about also how the world leaders during the the G7 summit, well, they promised something very important. They said, we're going to donate 1 billion COVID vaccine doses for the poor nation. So I hope they can keep that promise. I mean, they do tend to make these kind of very, very admirable promises, but then backing it up is the real question. Will they back it up? That is something that we'll have to see. We'll have to foresee as the year goes by. And other things also that is going on is the Northern Ireland issue. Also, the issue between UK and the EU and the border checks with Northern Ireland. So there's also, we're going to be discussing about all these things as we go along in the show. And hey, if you want to be a part of it, all you got to do is simple. Hit me up with those numbers. It is 07852-473-473. That's right. You can always ask me anything you want to do. I mean, it depends on, whatever you want to say or whether you want to get this, you want to be a part of the show. You can always hit me up on those numbers. It is 072-473-473. That's right. Those are the numbers. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day, 365, 24/7. And getting right to it though, the hottest topic that we are going to be discussing today is how the lockdown easing in England is to be delayed by 4 weeks. Well, most of the coronavirus rules will remain in place in England for another 4 weeks after the planned 21st of June unlocking. So how is this going to affect us overall? Well, looking at the way things are going and the way things are moving, well, to see that this is something that for me, it's a great step because right now people have been excited and have been expectantly waiting to go back to normal. But like I said, as the situation dictates, getting back to normal at the moment does not seem like it is possible right now anyways, until today. Let's see how it goes. Maybe the situation will change within the next 4 weeks. And senior ministers have signed off on the decision to delay the lifting of all legal restrictions on social contact. So you're still required to wear that mask. So in case you're wondering, when is he going to say it? Well, I'm saying it now. Make sure you guys wear your mask. Make sure you go safe. And, make sure you're safe outside and make sure, you try to keep that social distancing. And this is going to mean that there is going to be capacity limits for sports, for pubs, and for cinemas, and it will still remain, and nightclubs will still stay closed. So Prime Minister Boris Johnson is due to confirm the delay at a news conference later at around 6 p.m. BST. So the extension will be put to a Commons vote this month and could trigger a sizable Conservative backbench rebellion. So there's going to be issues with regards to this. And people are not quite happy with it. They're not quite happy with the decision that this is being pushed. But then, look, we got to look at the facts. We got to look at the statistics. The numbers show that that it is rising. It is increasing. There is a problem going on. And there has been a rise in cases, especially with regards to these places like Glasgow. Then we got Bolton, Greater Manchester area, all these areas, the city of Edinburgh. So these places have a lot of these Delta variant has spread and has transmitted across to a lot of people. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep it safe, and we don't want things to go back to the beginning, to how it was in the beginning of the pandemic. That's something that we are trying to prevent, that we are trying not to happen right now. This is something that we need to make sure that it doesn't happen. To do that, this is one of the reasons why I feel the smartest decision that they've made right now is to make sure that we delay this lockdown. So the extension, like I said, it will be put to a Commons vote this month. They're going to be voting on this particular matter. And England was due to move to stage 4 of the government's roadmap out of lockdown on the 21st of June. But venues and these events would be allowed to operate without any limits to their capacities, and the cap on guests at weddings would be lifted. But all that is going to change maybe hopefully by next month, but not now. Now they're making sure that the entire lifting of this whole entirety of the lockdown is still going to be remaining. We're not going to be lifting anything at the moment. We're not going to lift any of the restrictions. We're going to make sure we keep on this until the situation dies down. And with that particular regard, though, it has also meant an end to current rules, which limit a lot of these gatherings. If you look at this, if the lockdown lifting had happened, what would have happened is it would mean an end to rules. There's not going to be any limits to gatherings and people from homes of 6 or 2 households. There's none of that. The rules of 6 does not matter, does not count anymore if we lifted the lockdown. But a lot of these scientists, and thank you to those scientists, have called for a reopening to be delayed. So what they did is they urged the government and told them, hey, listen, this is not something that is working out right now. We have to make sure that we delay this to enable more people to get vaccinated, to receive more second doses, because all these cases are rising. These Delta variant cases are rising. And this, in case you guys are wondering, what's this Delta variant? Well, in other words, it was formerly known as the Indian variant. Well, now it's known as the Delta variant. So right now, the variant is the most dominant one in the country. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit this. We're trying to restrict the movement of this virus. And to do that, we have to get more individuals vaccinated. So the plan is to hopefully get everyone by the time next month comes in, another 4 weeks. So it's going to be delayed for another 4 weeks. And hopefully by the time next month, July, most probably everyone in the country would have gotten their vaccination. So yes, that's something that will help, that will enable us to fight this whole thing altogether. So the delay is going to allow more work to be done on whether these vaccines are breaking or simply weakening the link between the infections and hospitalizations. Because right now, we're not quite sure, is it really breaking it 100%? I mean, look, when you think about it, is the vaccine actually breaking the links, or is it just making it weaker so it's becoming negligible so we don't even notice it anymore? Well, right now, scientists need more time to investigate on this particular matter and to make sure, all right, this is how it is working. This is what is going on. We know that the virus right now the link is not breaking. The link is still there. All it's doing is this vaccine is, in a way, it's just simply weakening the infection. So you don't really notice it. It's still there, but it's really negligible when you try to look at it. It makes it look like it's breaking the link, but it's not. The link is still there. It's still going on. So the whole point of this is what's happening is the virus will get more resistant to this particular vaccines. So that's the thing that we want to prevent. We want to prevent any more mutation of this virus strain and become another sort of virus, another sort of monster that we want to avoid altogether. And Health Minister Edward Arger has said that he could not confirm the delay before the preem's announcement, but there were concerning increase in cases of the Delta variant, and numbers in hospitals were beginning to creep up. So the numbers in the hospitals, people getting hospitalized, well, the numbers were somewhat rising. It was getting up to that point where, it was starting to be more noticeable, I'd like to say. And in other words, like I said, we're trying to prevent all that. So this is why the government decided, okay, they finally listened to the health gurus and scientists and all of that. And they said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we keep the easing of the lockdown, entirety of the lockdown, to be delayed and pushed back for another month at least until we get everyone in the country vaccinated. So most of these severe cases were among unvaccinated people. So people who've not got the vaccination, who've not received any of the vaccine, well, they are the people who are at most risk. So they're the most vulnerable people right now. And those who've had only one dose of the vaccine, well, these are just what the health minister is saying. He's saying, okay, the people who are susceptible to this virus are the people who are not vaccinated or who just had one dose of the vaccine. And yeah, he went on to say, that at the current rates, nearly 10 million second doses could be administered over 4 weeks to increase the protection. So 10 million people, 10 million doses. So we're going to get that to 10 million people, and then we're going to have a strong of 10 million people, making sure that they've had their second doses. So right now, this is, in my opinion, if they did push it and if they get the people to get their vaccines by the time of next month, then yes, we can open the country. We can look forward to something like that. We can look forward to reopening the country again, because we've got the people vaccinated, so we don't have a fear of the increasing number of cases and hospitalizations when it comes to this virus. So Mr. Arger went on to say that the Prime Minister would address issues of economic support in any announcement, and that the PM was very sensitive to the situation of couples who have already had to postpone their weddings. And he understands that. I mean, he was a man of one of those people. I mean, he did get married very recently, so he understands how it is how it's an issue and it's a rising concern. And yeah, all areas of Scotland are due to move to level 0 COVID restrictions on the 28th of June. That's right. So everyone in Scotland the cases are right now. They are going to be moving, and they're going to be removing all these restrictions on the 28th of June, meaning bigger groups can gather in these cafes, pubs, restaurants, although they still have to observe social distancing. So that's still a rule. That's still the government, the people will have to follow in Scotland. And looking at things in Northern Ireland, indoor gatherings in Northern Ireland right now are scheduled to be relaxed on the 21st of June. And the current rules in Wales will be reviewed on the 25th of June. So right now, Wales is taking it the slowest. I feel Wales is the smartest also, because they're taking it slow. Yes, it is affecting the economy in a way, but then what they realize is it affects the economy right now. It's affecting the whole economy right now. But then in a couple of months, people will be glad that we pushed this back, because what is going to happen is we're going to be running at full capacity again. And this is something that they are looking forward to. So they are reviewing the situation. They're looking at their neighbors. They're looking at England right now, and they're wondering, okay, if England is going to have it bad, we might have it bad too. So what we're going to do, we're going to review this whole thing. We're going to review it. We're going to start thinking about opening up on the 25th of June. So we'll have a discussion on that. With regards to that is what they're trying to say right now at this current point in time. So yeah, these are some of the things that they want to do. And UK is on the track for a big wave of infections. Right now, looking at these graphs and these charts, it shows 21st of June, there is a rising trend when it comes to the number of people getting infected. These are the projected numbers. They're saying that there's going to be 15,000 cases a day by June if we're going at the current rate that we're going. So right now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent that. And for the government to prevent that, well, the best way is to make sure that we keep the country locked, and we push back the dates of easing of the lockdown. So yeah, with that regards, we'll be talking about all these things as we go along in the show. So make sure you guys keep it locked. We're going to be talking about how these the track of the waves for infections in the UK is rising. It is on a rise right now. So make sure you guys keep it locked. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 3:41. Good afternoon.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one, because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Welcome back to the show. This is RELAKS. That's right. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you on riding, rather on this whole ride that is the real talk. We're trying to keep it real all the way until 6 p.m. And yeah, we're talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK. And yeah, the topic of concern, like I said, is how the lockdown easing in England is to be delayed by 4 weeks. I mean, look, that 4 weeks, I'd rather 4 weeks than another year. I mean, I can give that up. I can give another month of my time, maybe even 2 months of my time than for 1 more year. I mean, we don't want that. This is something that we want to get over with as fast as possible. And sometimes this is just the way that we have to do things. We have to take it slow. We have to make it sure that, we lift it as, cautiously as we can, because what we want to do is we want to prevent getting more cases. We want to prevent making sure that the whole country doesn't fall into this whole scene again where we get a lot more people, a lot more hospitalizations. This is something that we want to avoid at all costs. And yeah, with all this situation going on, the UK is in for a big wave of infections. This is what graphs are showing up by the Department of Health and Social Care. They are showing a graph that says there is going to be an uprise trend. That's correct. That's right. An upward trend of these cases, the number of infections in the country. So that if we're going at the current rate that we are going right now, well, there is to be expected at least 15,000 cases a day by the 21st of June. I know it might sound like an exaggeration, but graphs are statistics. Statistics are always, about exaggerating, and it's not really a set in stone number, but they're saying, okay, listen, this is what's going to happen. If we follow this trend that we are doing now, if we're getting the number of cases that we are getting right now, well, this is something that we'll have to expect. The numbers will go to a rise, maybe not 15,000, but 10,000, even 12, 13,000. It's still a big number. It's still thousands. We don't even want that. We want to make sure that it's zero. Maybe 5 or 2, but then 0. We want that's, to be realistic, at least 50 cases. Okay, but that is 15,000 cases a day is a lot of cases. Like that's, it'll be no time by the time, the whole country can get reinfected again. And this is something we want to avoid and prevent at all costs. So yeah, like I said, there is an upward trend right now. And this is the graph that they show. And they say, okay, the numbers will keep, if it's going the way it is, and if we're going to go at this rate, well, the cases will be more. And yeah, this is something we want to avoid. So if lifting of the restriction is pushed back, well, the UK Weddings Task Force and Industry Group estimates that 50,000 weddings planned in the 4 weeks from June 21st of June could be cancelled, and with the industry losing 325 million pounds for every week of delay. So currently, the number of guests allowed at wedding is limited to 30 people. So only 30 individuals can go to this weddings. So if you're having a wedding or some of that sort, well, you can only invite 30 people. So the wedding industries are not quite happy with this. And they're saying, okay, what's happening is if you push this for another month, well, for every week, we're going to be losing 325 million pounds. I mean, 325 million, yes, the industries are going to suffer. There's always going to be a little bit of a downward spiral when you look at the numbers. But we have to understand, I would rather it be just a couple of million than 4 billion, the whole economy collapsing, because we have to stay into lockdown again. And that could take even longer. That's something that we want to avoid at all costs. So right now, even if the limit is at 30, we can make sure that for 4 weeks, we can always wait. What's the rush? And the Nighttime Industries Association said business such as nightclubs had already spent millions preparing to reopen, and the association would legally challenge any delay to reopening. And these nightclubs are not quite happy, and they are saying, "Oh, hey, listen, we are suffering a grand loss. And we're losing a lot of money. How are you guys going to compensate this? What are we going to do if you don't open up? Well, right now, what we are going to do is we're going to take legal action against you." And against the government, that is. And Will Power, the owner of the Lab 11 Club, a nightclub in Birmingham, said a delay would be catastrophic. And with that regards, he also said this will possibly hurt us more down than the initial lockdown back in March last year. And Kate Nichols from UK Hospitality, which represents pubs, bars, and restaurants, said businesses faced losing £3 billion in sales if the relaxation of the restriction was delayed by a month. And they're saying if we delay this for one more month, well, we're going to be struggling. We're going to be suffering even more. So singer Frank Turner, who has raised money for struggling small music venues, said that the delay would tip some businesses into final collapse. So what they're saying is right now they're going to collapse a lot of these businesses. While the theater producer Sonia Friedman warned many livelihoods are under existential threat. And because of this, but then we have to understand they might come with all these kind of sorts of reasons, but the way the government is handling this is, in my opinion, smart. Because look, scientists are saying yes, we're going to lose a couple of billion maybe, but we don't want to lose lives. This is something that we want to prevent. And when people have selfish agendas like this and they say, oh, this is how it's going to happen, our business is going to struggle, we're going to lose money. Yes, you're going to lose money, but nothing when in comparison to a life, though. I mean, you can always earn money. Yes, businesses fail, but then that's just the way things work. And we have to understand that, yes, although this happens, yes, I know the losses will be irreparable. There's going to be extreme losses. But what the government is doing is they want to push this down. They want to make sure, at least for a safety measure, make more people vaccinated. I mean, if you can't wait another one more month, what's another month? In my opinion, what's another month, over a year? I'd rather pick a month over a year any day. So with that, though, the rising numbers in the UK are being driven by the Delta variant. Right now, they're saying it is the Delta variant that is responsible for a lot of this rising infection and is believed to be 60% more infectious than the previous dominant variant and twice as likely to result in hospital admissions. And they're saying, okay, this is the problem right now. We're going to get twice as much cases. There's going to be twice as much of a problem with regards to this. So on Sunday, the UK reported 7,419 new cases of COVID-19 and 8 deaths within 28 days of a positive test. So within these 28 days of that period, well, people died from this. So 8 individuals have died from this virus. So the 7-day average for cases in the UK is up to 49% compared with the 7 days before. So if it wasn't for the Delta variant, the government would in all likelihood be announcing the go-ahead for a full unlocking of the country. Because right now we didn't expect this. Like I said, we did not expect this new variant to come in and invade and then make sure, looking at the way it spreads, we didn't expect it to spread like this, but it isn't spreading. I mean, this is something we can't prevent at the moment. And a more infectious variant against one shot of the vaccine. So if you take one shot of your vaccine, well, it's not going to be effective enough to fight this particular variant because it's 60% more transmissible. And that's something that, it shows that this is going to be creating a problem. So, from right now, a lot of this can be seen by how quickly these infection levels are rising. And the trajectory that we are on means we could see January levels of infection by the end of July. So this is something that we want to avoid. This is something that we want to prevent at all costs. So exactly what that means for the hospital admissions is less clear, but it is already obvious that while vaccines have weakened the link between these cases and serious illness, well, they've not broken it completely. There's still cases, there's still a rising number of cases, and admissions are rising after all of this. So after all the data that we've collected, well, unfortunately, there is a rising number of cases. So this is just unfortunate. And looking at all these things, right, like I said, all the trajectory that we are on right now, what they're saying, they're predicting, okay, that the number of cases increasing in the country. The Department of Health and Social Care are saying that, okay, this is how it'll look in the next month if we don't make sure that everyone, we don't delay. If we make sure that we lift all this lockdown right now, well, what's going to happen is the cases will rise. So we want to prevent that. We want to make sure everyone gets vaccinated before we open up the country. So we're looking at all of these things right now. All of this, exactly what this means for these hospital admissions is not clear because it's already, like I said, all of these cases are rising, but it's not really completely broken. With that regard, though, when you look at these things, like I said, cases, right, early data suggests that less than 5% of cases are ending up in hospitals. Then half the rate seen previously, so less than 5% are ending up in the hospitals. So there's still potential to cause at least 2,000 admissions a day if we did reach January levels of infections. That is twice what the NHS and would see for all the respiratory illnesses in a bad winter. So none of that is guaranteed, though, of course, and so a delay, the government scientists are arguing, gives them more time to work out with confidence where we are heading. And it's even possible the immunity built by the vaccine will have started to halt the growth by then. So by then, hopefully, we can make sure that, we can guarantee for a fact that a lot of people will be immune to the virus, in the coming of months. But the government, they have set 4 tests that must be met for the next stage of the easing of the restrictions to go ahead. So they have come up with a bunch of steps. So the first step, well, the vaccine deployment program continues successfully, and the way things are looking, people are getting vaccinated. So it's really, to look at the situation, number of people getting vaccinated is incredible. There's a lot of people getting vaccinated, and evidence that shows vaccines are sufficiently effective in reducing the hospitalizations and deaths in those vaccinated. So a lot of people, like I said, the people who had 1 dose of the vaccine, well, they're not completely out of the bush right now. They're not completely out of it right now. They're still in the midst of all this. So if we get the number of people, with the number of people who've gotten 2 doses of the vaccine, if we've increased that, well, we can make sure for a fact that the number of cases in the country will reduce. And infection rates do not risk a surge in hospitalizations, which would put unsustainable pressure on the NHS. So right now, the NHS is breathing fine so far, because looking at the numbers back in early January, well, the cases were enormous. It was overwhelming for the NHS to handle. I mean, workforce was thinned out, spread out really thin, and that's just an understatement. That's like even more thinner than a little slice of butter on bread. So that's how thin they were. But then they still managed to do it. They still managed to cope up with it, even though it was stressful. They were overworked, overburdened. A lot of these nurses had a very, very hard time. Healthcare workers, doctors, staff members, and all of that. People who were the frontline workers, essential workers for this in hospitals. Well, they did face a lot of these problems, but they still managed to do it. But they can't. What they're saying right now is, according to this, is that the NHS can't handle it again. If it happens again, well, it's gonna be a disaster, and that's something that we want to avoid. So this is, these are just the requirements that we need to see is met. These requirements are met, then we can make sure that the country opens up again. And infection rates, like I said, it's not going to show like a risk in surge in hospitalizations, and its assessments of the risk is not fundamentally changed by new variants of concern. So right now, what we're going with is, yes, the vaccine is effective, somewhat effective against the virus. So we can for a fact, we can make sure that everyone gets their second dose. They're still going to have a level of protection, and that's something that we need right now. So more than 41 million people in the UK have had their first dose of a coronavirus vaccine, while 13 million have had 2 doses. So right now, like I said, the numbers are almost equal. I mean, we're 10 million off, but by the next month, hopefully we can get most of those people, the 41 million, at least 10 million people more to get vaccinated. So that will reduce the number of cases in the country. So some conservative MPs said they were concerned that the vulnerable businesses would close permanently, and the prospect of ending all the coronavirus restriction was receding. Well, backbencher Peter Bowen said he would vote against continuing restrictions unless the Prime Minister was able to show there was a very clear danger to our society. And he said that currently he can't see the evidence. Why should we be postponing our freedom? And I mean, talk about selfish in that regard. I mean, just because you're against a particular party or something, you have to understand the situation is not great as it seems. So Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer also went on to say that if the lockdown decision was confirmed, it would be because of the government's pathetic borders policy, which he said allowed the Delta variant to become established in the UK. And there's a lot of these talks, a lot of backlash when it comes to the other parties as well. There's always going to be things like this. Whenever you look into politics, there's always going to be agenda-based motives, and this is just one of this. They're saying, okay, this is the situation. The government is displaying around and stuff like that. But in my opinion, right now, the best decision, what they've done in a very while, is to make sure that we lock down, because we want to avoid a case like in January. I mean, 15,000 cases a day. That's just a lot to handle. I mean, imagining the workforce even handling like that number of cases, well, it's just terrifying. So these are just some of the things that we want to avoid as much as possible. More on that and a whole lot more. Make sure you guys keep it live. We're going to be taking a real quick break. Taking a look here at time. It is a 4:02. Good evening.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. I mean, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
He said to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. I mean, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK. And we were discussing about how the lockdown delays have been happening. And this is of major concern right now. And it's been a big problem with that regards. Looking at all these things, the numbers have not been so clear so far. And there has been a rising number of cases. So what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to prevent it as much as possible. So lockdown easing in England, like I said, has been delayed by another 4 weeks. And other things have been eventful. It's been a pretty eventful week so far, weekend rather. And world leaders have been promising 1 billion COVID vaccine doses for poorer nations. Since we're talking about this topic and we are on with this, well, with that regards, the world leaders have been saying and have been discussing about this particular matter at hand. And they said, okay, with the rising number of cases, well, it seems clear that we will have to donate to the countries that will need it the most. And these are the poorer nations in the world. So leaders of this was all discussed during the G7 summit in Cornwall. So leaders of the major industrial nations have pledged 1 billion, that's right, 1 billion COVID vaccine doses to poor nations as a big step towards vaccinating the world. This is in other words, what Boris Johnson has said so far. So at the end of the G7 summit in Cornwall, the Prime Minister said countries were rejecting nationalistic approaches. And he said vaccinating the world would show the benefits of the G7's democratic values. And with that regard, so there's also a pledge to wipe out their contribution to climate change. So right now, after the first meeting of the world leaders in 2 years, Mr. Johnson said the world was looking to us to reject some of the selfish nationalistic approaches that marred the initial global response to the pandemic, and to channel all our diplomatic, economic, and scientific might to defeating COVID for a good. This is what Mr. Johnson said in his own particular words. He directly quoted all of these things, and he said that the G7 leaders have pledged to supply the vaccines to these poor countries. And if you're wondering, so these include 100 million from the UK, either directly or through COVAX scheme, which is also to be co-led by the World Health Organization, said by Gabby. So with that regards, like I said, they have been talking about these things, and they said right now the UK has been making their pledge and making sure that they want to get the whole world vaccinated. So the UK has promised and to donate 1 million of their doses, and that is from the UK, either through directly or through the COVAX system, which is being co-led by the World Health Organization, Gavi, and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. So the communique issued by the summit pledges to end the pandemic and also prepare for the future by driving an intensified international effort, starting with immediately, to vaccinate the world by getting as many safe vaccines to as many people as possible and as fast as possible. So it also includes steps to tackle climate change, with leaders recommitting to the target of reaching the net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2050 at least, and pledging to eliminate most coal power. So right now, these are things we'll be discussing as we go along in the show, and we'll be talking about how they have been trying to get down to that coal power. But also, Mr. Johnson rejected suggestions that the vaccine pledge was a moral failure by the G7, as it was not enough to cover the needs of poorer countries. So with that regards, though, he referred to the UK's involvement in the development of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and he said that already of the 1.5 billion vaccines that have already been distributed around the world, I would think people in this country should be very proud that 500 million of them are as a result of the actions taken by the UK government in doing that deal with Oxford scientists and AstraZeneca scientists to distribute it at a cost. So he added that we are going to flat out and we are producing vaccines as fast as possible as we can and distributing them as fast as we can. So we're doing the best that we can right now is what he's trying to say. The government is stating all of these things. And they went on to say that the target to vaccinate the world by the end of next year would be met very largely thanks to the efforts of countries who have come here today. And with that regards, he's talking about the G7 countries that have come to their meeting and who were there at the summit. So they're saying, okay, if we beat COVID, well, it will be because of us, is what they're trying to say. They're already taking credit for all of these things. I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed that they're talking about how they are the superpowers of the world. I mean, if you are doing good, yes, that it's all great and dandy. But with that regards, also it's not that at least they have to be a little humble when it comes to matters like that. So I mean, yes, the countries do know that they have taken from you, and they won't forget your generosity and your kindness. So these are things that we need right now. So leaders slightly exceeded their target of donating 1 billion COVID vaccines to poorer countries within the next year. So if the funding for future doses is included alongside individual jabs. So there is also a commitment to build the frameworks to prevent and fight future pandemics. Elsewhere in the 25-page communique, there were several references to China, which President Biden said was in change from a previous meeting of the world's advanced economies. So pledges made this time included working together to respond to China's impact on world trade. And on the recovery from COVID, there has even been a reference to Prime Minister Boris Johnson's trademark domestic policy, the need to reduce inequalities by leveling up. So charities and campaigners issued statements calling out vague promises and missed opportunities. But Mr. Johnson will feel that post-Brexit Britain has staged a diplomatic show that was both competent and confident. So Mr. Johnson has also dismissed the suggestion, though, that patents for the vaccine should be waived in order to boost global supply, something which the U.S. backed last month. And he said he wanted to protect incentives for innovation while building up manufacturing capacities, especially in Africa. So elsewhere in their community, G7 leaders also pledged to improve early warning systems to prepare for this future health crisis. So if there's going to be another health crisis, well, they want to make sure that they know and they are prepared for it the next time it does come around. And they also want to phase out of these coal-fired power stations without carbon capture technology and raise $100 billion. That is 70 billion pounds to help poor nations, cut their emissions. They want to help a lot of these poor countries as well. And because like I said, this is a joint effort. If you look at it from this perspective, what the G7 is saying is this is a joint effort. So we have to make sure that we cut carbon emissions as well. We help people who are struggling with this and support a green revolution that creates jobs, cuts emissions, and seeks to limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees. So reinvigorate their economies with plans that create jobs, invest in infrastructures, drive innovation, support people, and level up so that no place or person, irrespective of age, ethnicity, or gender, is left behind. And build back better by establishing a clean green growth fund for infrastructure developments in developing countries and respond to China's impact on world trade and challenge practices which undermine the fair and transparent operation of the global economy, and call on China to respect human rights, especially in relation to Xinjiang, where it has been accused of abuses against the Uyghur Muslims, and also get 40 million more girls into education by 2026. So the communique calls for a timely, transparent, expert-led, and science-based WHO-convened investigation into the origins of the COVID-19. So U.S. President Joe Biden has previously said the U.S. intelligence community is split on whether coronavirus came from human contact with an infected animal or from a lab accident, a theory rejected by China. So they're not quite sure. The intelligence agency is saying they're not really 100% sure with that regards what is going on. If this is mainly due to this, or if it is because of this that the virus did spread. Was it actually because of an animal, or was it a lab accident? Right now, they are not sure as well. They don't even know. They can't even promise an answer with regards to that. So looking at all these things, Mr. Johnson also said the advice that we've had is it doesn't look as though this particular disease of zoonotic origin came from a lab. But he added, clearly anybody sensible would want to keep an open mind about that. So French President Emmanuel Macron said the international community needed clarity about the origins of the virus, but said it was up to the WHO to investigate it. So right now, the French are wondering, okay, the French president is talking about this, and he did say that, okay, we want to know more about this virus. We want to know how it came, where it originated from, and we need that to be investigated. If WHO is going to do it, well, they better do it. and is what he's trying to say. So with G7 countries accounting for 20% of carbon emissions, Mr. Johnson went on to say that we were clear this weekend that actions needed to start with us. But pressed on the lack of binding agreements and timetables, the Prime Minister says he will not pretend our work is done, and he will be on everybody's case to make further progressions and to progress ahead of the COP26 summit in Scotland later this year. So Christine McNeil from Crack the Crisis, a coalition of charities and NGOs, including Save the Children and Oxfam, said the G7 summit was a historic missed opportunity on COVID-19 and climate change. And they went on to say leaders arrived with good intentions, but without their checkbooks, she said. So Joanna Ray from the UNICEF UK said the G7 pledge on vaccines was the beginning of action required to end this pandemic. And they called for a rapid acceleration of dose sharing in the next 3 months to ensure millions of vaccines get to the people in countries who need them the most. So with that regards, though, they are saying, okay, the time to act is now. We got to make sure that the people, the economy moves faster, and we got to make sure the government acts as fast as possible, as fast as practical, because right now we need to make sure that the number of cases face a drop. We don't want to see more rises. So to do that, we have to donate more of the vaccine across to these poorer nations and these countries that require it the most. But then my argument is, like you said, like what they are all saying, rather, and what must be on your mind is the government and the world leaders, though, have been saying that they will promise 1 billion COVID vaccine doses for poorer nations. Is that going to be enough, though? I mean, 1 billion. I mean, India itself has at least 1 billion of their population. So the question is, okay, are you donating it for one particular country or just a couple of vaccines just to help only a few people? Because what we have to understand is these vaccines that come into these countries like India, like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, any of these countries that it goes to, well, there's going to be problems with that relations, because what happens is when they give these doses away, it will not be enough, because when the country has a lot more of their population, they're more populated than this number of vaccines that they're giving. So what's going to happen is a lot of these politicians as well, corrupt politicians and people in places of power, will start abusing their powers and making sure that their people get vaccinated over the other. There's also, discussion. They have to consider facts like that. They have to make sure that they look into matters like that as well. So, hopefully they will, and hopefully that is something that they can, they can implement methodology, rather, I'd like to say, when it comes to that regards. Yeah, so, I mean, this is something we can expect, hopefully, by the next year, that they can keep this promise, though, by next year. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully, this is an initiative that the G7 summit, the G7 countries, rather, can keep their promise. And, with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break. Your time right now, it is 4:20. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that? What
makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there, you're quite
I mean,
right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now. So, yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and entertained all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK. There's a lot of topics going on, and there's a lot of discussion about how people are, worried, especially with the situation going on. And there's also been talks about how people are worried about this new Delta variant, and with that regards, the headaches and runny noses have been actually confirmed to be linked to the Delta variant. Yeah, if you guys are wondering what that I mean, am I gonna get the Delta variant? Do I already have it? Well, I'm not really quite sure you do. So I mean, hold your horses. There is a situation, like I said, with that regards, they're saying this could also be associated symptoms. So, a headache, sore throat, and runny nose are now the most commonly reported symptoms linked to the COVID infection in the UK. And this is what a lot of researchers are saying with that regards. Like I said, right now we are looking at this thing at this moment, and we say, okay, there is the issue with that regard, and we are talking about how there has been a rise in these cases, and we have been concerned with that regard. And like I said, most of this thing is an issue. And it sounds like a common cold. Also, when you really look at the situation, it does sound like the common cold. And we don't really know what is going on. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we cut down in the number of cases. And like I said, these are things the researchers are saying. And they're saying, okay, these are just linked to X, Y, and Z. So Professor Tim Spector, who runs the Zoe COVID symptoms study, well, he's been saying that catching the Delta variant can feel more like a bad cold for younger people. So the younger generation can feel like it's like a normal cold. Now it's a really bad cold for them. And although they might not feel very ill, they could be contagious and put others at risk. So anyone who thinks they may have COVID should take a test. And the classic COVID symptoms people should look out for are the NHS say are cough, when looking at all these things and considering all that, it's number one is if you have cough and if you have fever or if you have a loss of smell or taste or any of that, with that regards, if you lose any of your senses when it comes to taste or smell, well, it shows that you might have COVID. It does sound very similar with that regards to a normal infection, to a normal cold, to a common cold. So yeah, if you have any of these things, if you have a cold, a fever, or a loss of smell or taste, or even and if you have runny nose and headaches, well, this all could be related to the COVID-19, which is the Delta variant. And we're trying to prevent that at all costs right now. And like I said, the situation is at that point where we are not quite sure how exactly the symptoms are, but Professor Spector says there are now less common based on the data that the Zoe team has been receiving from thousands of people who have logged their symptoms on an app. So through this app, they discovered, okay, this is the cases and this is how these are the associated symptoms when it comes to this particular disease. So since the start of May, we've been looking at the top symptoms in the app users, and they are not the same as they were, is what he's saying. And he says the change appears linked to the rise in the Delta variant, first identified in India and now accounting for 90% of COVID cases in the UK. So fever remains quite common, but loss of smell no longer appears in the top 10 symptoms. This is what Professor Spector says. And he went on to say that this variant seems to be working slightly differently, he says. And people might think they've gotten some sort of seasonal cold, and they still go out to parties, and they might spread around to 6 other people. So there is the chances of spreading this to 6 other people or even more, if you would think about it. And this is, what they want to avoid, and they're trying to prevent this at all costs. So with that regards, the people also have to be considerate. The people will have to realize, all right, we have a cold. It could be corona. So what we're going to do is we're going to prevent that. What we're going to do, we have to be safe. We have to make sure that we stay at home and avoid any sort of this, social. Any sort of the social contacts. Yeah, this is what we have to do as much as possible. So, like I said, a lot of these have been there's been a lot of these changes, and they're not the same as they were first identified. And right now, they say that this variant is slightly different, and we think this is fueling a lot of the problem, because people expect something else, but they get different kind of symptoms. And the message here is that if you are young and you're going to get milder symptoms anyways, it might just feel like a bad cold, or some funny off feeling, but do stay at home and do get a test. So similarly, the Imperial College of London, the Relaks study of more than 1 million people in England, well, they went on to say when the Alpha or the UK variant was dominant, found a wide range of additional symptoms linked to COVID. So they got chills, they had loss of appetite, headache, and muscle aches were together most strongly linked with being infected alongside classic symptoms. So these are very, very common symptoms if you think about it. Common, especially when you get a cold or an ordinary cold. Well, these are the kind of symptoms that you will be having. And with that regards, also the government went on to say, that they advised that the most important symptoms of COVID are new continuous cough. So if you're having a continuous cough and it's not going away, you're having extremely high temperature, and I'm not talking about a low-grade fever, but an actual high temperature, and you're having loss or change in taste or smell, that is also called as anosmia. Well, these are just some of the reasons why you should go and seek an appointment with the doctor. So there are other symptoms linked with the COVID-19, they say. So there are other symptoms that may cause another cause and are not their own and a reason to have a COVID-19 test. So if you're concerned about your symptoms, always first and foremost, seek medical advice. That's right. Make sure you talk to a professional with regards to this. They will know what to do, whether you need to go undergo a test or not. So make sure if you have something to avoid, if you want to prevent from spreading, well, you have to make sure that you get checked and you go to a medical professional. So you have to check and seek medical aid, because we don't really know what the symptoms can do, and all of these things are, with that regards, it's a problem. So we're trying to prevent this and prevent the possible spread of this virus. So there's just a lot of these things that is going on, and it's right now with that regard, it is being discussed how the government should handle this. And there's so much of discussion going on, and there's so much of talks. And with that regards, though, when you talk about all these things, how people are getting infections, we're not quite sure, like I said, of how it is going to happen. But we know that this is something that if you have a cold, if you have a fever, if you have a continuous cough, or if you're coughing up, if you're coughing and it's a dry cough and it's been there for a while, well, there are, it can be any kind of cough. If you're having a continuous cough, well, make sure you go to a doctor. If you're having fever, you're having muscle aches or body aches, well, you make sure that you see a professional. So with that regards, though, we're talking about all of these things related to Corona and taking a look at other things across, right now, there has been a lot of these talks of why petrol is going to be the end of the road in stations. So petrol stations are going to come to a close. Yeah, it's very foreseeable the way the economy is working and the way people are shifting their goals and their aims right now. And they're saying, okay, right now we can't be dependent on this diesel fuel or petroleum, all of this gas and gasoline and all of that. So what we have to do is they're trying to get everyone to transition into electric vehicles. But the big worry for most people thinking about buying an electric car is how to charge the thing. So right now we don't have enough of charging ports. So with that question, though, with that discussion, there has been, the real question, like I said, we don't really know right now how many cases, like how many of these charging hubs will be there in the future. So people are concerned about it. So they're going to ask, the big question is, how are you going to refuel your vehicle or your petrol or diesel vehicle if you don't go electric? Well, what happens is that's because electric cars are going to send the petroleum stations business into a death spiral over the next 2 decades. So in the next 20 years, they're going to make electric vehicles the default option for all car owners. So why is that? Because, charging electric vehicles is going to be much, much more straightforward than refueling petrol and diesel cars. So this isn't just the government that has banned the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2030. So imagine this is not just because the government is banning it, but they're saying this is going to be a straightforward initiative, and this is how we want to do it right now. We want to cut out on, we want to make sure that the climate is safe, and global warming is a problem, and the number one contributor to that is these coal-powered stations and the petroleum companies. So with that regards, imagine though, if we are going the other way, replacing electric cars with fossil fuel power. So it's just crazy. If you look at this, there's a lot of these people, worried about this, and there is, talk about this regards. So electricity, by contrast, if you think about it, electricity is pretty much everywhere already. When you compare when it comes to fuel, you'll have to import it. There's so much things that you have to do. It's very highly flammable. Then you need a pump as well with that regards. And there's so much work when it comes down to petroleum companies. When it comes down to pumping fuel to your vehicle, there's a lot of process with that regards. But when you look at electricity, well, electricity, by contrast, is pretty much everywhere already. Every single place has electricity. So where's your car now? Well, do you think it might be near an electricity cable? Well, that's exactly it. You can make sure that your cars get charged. So that's something that you can look forward to, and you can. It's accessibility. End of the day, when it comes to all these matters, it's in regards to accessibility. How much accessible a particular matter or material is, and if it's very accessible right now, well, there is just with that regards, it's something that you can look forward to, and you can make sure that you get yourself an electric vehicle in the future. So because look, accessibility is very important, and right now we have loads of electricity in the world, in any part of the world right now. So these are just small things that we can do in an initiative to make sure that we go electric. That's what I'm trying to say. And looking at all these things, it's not so difficult when all you have to do is you have to have a battery, make sure it's charged. That's pretty much it. So if you live in a flat or a house without a drive, well, don't worry about all these things. The aim is to have an electric vehicle charging point at virtually every parking place. So every parking place, anywhere you park your car, well, there's going to be a charging place there. So you can make sure that your car is charged up. So that's something you can, you look forward to. So these are just things that they are planning. The government is planning this. So the first people to get charging technologies at homes are those with driveways who can run a cable to their electric cars. So these charging points are going to be important in the future. So this is something that we will adopt in the next coming decades. In the next 2-3 decades, this is something that will come to rise. They're going to make this compulsory. A lot of the big companies, exotic cars and all of that, are already trying to start and initiate the transition over to electric vehicles. So right now it is a death sentence to a lot of these stores and a lot of these convenience stores in these things as well. There's going to be problems. Petroleum companies are going to be falling. The price of gas is going to drop, and there's going to be issues like that with that regard. But then they're going to replace this with electric vehicles. So let's see how it goes with these electric charging points. Something that we can look forward to in the next couple of decades. And hey, with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break. And your time right now, it is 4:40. Good evening.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, and mainly one, because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. I mean, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it." And that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. I mean, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to Relaks Radio, RELAKS. That's right. This is me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. And we're talking about all things going on in the UK right now. And we're talking about a lot of these things going on. And, very recently we had the G7 summit. That's right. We had the summit happening right here in the UK, and that happened in Cornwall. And right now, China has denounced the G7 after a statement on their Xinjiang and Hong Kong issue. Well, with that regards, China has fired back, and they are talking and accusing the G7 of political manipulation after it criticized Beijing over a range of its issues. And in a joint statement at the end of a 3-day summit, leaders of the G7 countries urged China to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms. And issues highlighted included abuses against the Uyghur Muslim minority group and the crackdown on Hong Kong pro-democracy activists. So China's embassy in the UK accused the G7 of baseless accusations, and they went on to say, a spokesperson went on to say and he said it on Monday, that they want these countries to stop slandering China, stop interfering in China's internal affairs, and stop harming China's interests. So the statement by the G7, the world's 7 largest so-called advanced economies, included pledges on a number of issues, such as ending the coronavirus pandemic and steps to tackle climate change, as well as reference. There were several references to China as well. They were talking about China, and they did discuss about, how they wanted to address the Chinese issue, how the Chinese people have been, how the Chinese government rather has been going on with their particular issues. And on that regard, though, they have been talking about this, and they say that right now, the group, especially right now, the 7 countries that were involved was Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US. They called on China. Essentially they called out China and they said, "Hey, listen, you need to respect human rights in Xinjiang. Xinjiang is basically a northwestern region that is home to a lot of these Uyghur and other Muslim minorities." And they went on to say that the experts also generally agree that China has detained as many as 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslims and imprisoned hundreds of thousands of more in its crackdown in Xinjiang. So, which it started back in 2017. So this started not yesterday, not today. It happened in 2017. So that's almost 4 years ago. So there have been widespread reports of physical and psychological torture inside prisons and detention camps in the region. So China denies these allegations. Till this day, they've been denying this, although there has been evidence with regard to this. And the G7 statement also called for rights and freedoms to be respected in Hong Kong, where a new security law passed by China last year has made it easier to punish protesters. So the leaders said Hong Kong should retain a high degree of autonomy and as established under agreements, which was handed back to China in 1997. So the statement underscored the importance of peace and stability. So they highlighted all these things and these important facts and these factors right now. And they said across Taiwan Strait, a heavily policed waterway that separates China and Taiwan right now. And like I said, Taiwan is also part of China back in the day. And with that regards, though, there has been issues with this. So China sees democratic Taiwan as a breakaway province, but Taiwan sees itself as a sovereign state. So they're saying, okay, the issue with Taiwan is never really independent. It was never independent to begin with. We just consider it a state that has gone a little bit wild. So they say that this is a breakaway province, but Taiwan though looks at itself as a country of its own, as a sovereign state. So it also demanded an investigation in China into the origins of the COVID-19. So China is not looking good for the Chinese government. When you looked at this, there's so many issues with regards to this. And they also, U.S. President Joe Biden said he was satisfied with the statement's language on China, but the Chinese embassy in the UK opposed the mentions of Xinjiang and Hong Kong and Taiwan, which said distorted the facts and exposed the sinister intentions of a few countries such as the United States. So a stronger message on China is expected to be issued by leaders of the NATO military alliance at a meeting on Monday. So they're going to be having a meeting with regards to this. They're going to be talking about this particular matter. And like I said, this is a matter of utmost importance and urgency. And you can see how they are going to be handling this and how the country will handle a situation like this. So the China right now, they're saying all these things. There's going to be a NATO meeting also. There's going to be an alliance meeting on Monday with regards. So they will be having a meeting next Monday with regards to this. And they went on to say that we know that China does not share our values and we need to respond together as an alliance. This is the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has said as he arrived on the one-day summit in Brussels. And White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the country would feature in NATO's communique in a more robust way than we've ever seen before and we've ever seen previously. So with that regards, like I said, right now they are taking it seriously, and China has been having problems there. The G7 summit has been spending plan to rival China's adopted one. So they are looking to issue with this particular matter. They're going to be tackling this on several different ways. And G7 leaders are seeking to rival China's. They've adopted a plan to support lower and middle-income countries in building better infrastructure. So President Joe Biden said he wanted the U.S. Build Back Better World, or the B3W plan, to be a higher quality alternative to similar Chinese programs. So China's Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI, has helped finance trains, roads, and ports in many countries, but it has been criticized for saddling some with debt. And with that regards, countries like, for instance, Sri Lanka as well, if you look at it as one of the countries that have been affected by these Chinese BRI systems and their debts. So in a statement at their summit in the English county of Cornwall, the G7 leaders did say that they would offer a values-driven, high-standard, and transparent partnership, and they're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to be more transparent with the people that we are going to be giving these loans to, or we're going to be building their bridges for, or houses for, lands, roads, trains. We're going to help finance all these things, but we're going to make sure that this is transparent. However, details of how the G7 plan will be financed remain unclear. So German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said the group was not yet at a stage to release financing for its initiative. So right now, they're saying these are all things that they're discussing at the moment. There's nothing really concrete as of yet. There's nothing really set in stone. So nothing's really set in stone at the moment until we get, we can find a way and formulate a plan with regards to this. So the U.S. had particularly been critical on China's so-called debt diplomacy. So the G7, the world's 7 wealthiest democracies literally have committed to a new plan to stop further pandemics. So the measures, is going to be what's going to feature in all these measures is cutting the time needed to develop and license vaccines and treatments for COVID-19, or what they want to do, cut it down to at least 100 days. So the plan will be officially unveiled on Sunday alongside all of these things with that regard. So the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is hosting a 3-day gathering at the seaside resort of Caribous Bay. So all these things, with that regard, like I said, they are trying to tackle China and the issues with China. So Americans see Saturday, the sessions at the G7 about challenging the rise of this Chinese influence around the world, and Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, which has seen billions of dollars poured into developing countries, must be countered by the Western democracies. So senior administration officials want to prove that Western values can prevail. So they argue that the Chinese investment has come with too high a price. And that tag, that's the forced labor of the Uyghur minority in Xinjiang, and it's morally it's egregious, is what they're trying to say, and economically unacceptable as it prevents fair competition. So global supply chains, Joe Biden will insist, must be free of this kind of labor. So U.S. officials say that this is not just about confronting China, but also presenting a positive alternative for the world. But the Biden administration has been vague about how much the West would contribute to this global infrastructure and over what timescale. What is clear, though, is a renewed determination among Western powers that they need to act to counter a resurgent and increasingly powerful China. I mean, what is your thoughts on these matters? You can always, hit me up and let me know with regards to the whole China situation and all of these things that is going on, and how the Chinese have been handling of things, and how the Western countries right now, G7 countries, 7 biggest economies in the world, want to handle the issues with regards to China. I mean, let me know, hit me up, those comments, you know what it is. It is 07852473473. That's right, those are the magical numbers. You can feel free to hit me up on those. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. But with that being said, taking a look at your chart right now, it is 4:57. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right, what you say there. You're quite
I mean,
right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks. That's right. We're trying to believe in all that positivity and trying to get out with all the negativity. That's right. And yeah, if you're wondering who this is, my name is Nick, and I'm keeping you company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is going on in the country and around the world. Well, right now there is also there's a lot of these issues going on with as of yet. And like I said, this whole G7 summit issue and all that matters, they've been discussing a lot of important topics. And one of that is how the G7 summit, they've been talking about Northern Ireland, part of one great indivisible UK. This is what the Prime Minister has openly said in his statements. Yes, he's been talking about all these things, and he did speak about this in the G7 summit. So with that regard, Boris Johnson said he's continuously making the point that the Northern Ireland is part of one great indivisible United Kingdom amid a row at the G7. So they're saying right now, well, we're having these problems. We're facing a lot of these issues with that regards. And reports claim a French president, Emmanuel Macron, said at the summit that Northern Ireland was not part of the UK. This is what he said. Well, Mr. Macron said he's never questioned the integrity of the British territory. The territory of England. So he went on to say, there's also the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the remark was offensive and that the EU figures characterized Northern Ireland as somewhat a separate country. And earlier, an Elise source said the French leader was talking about geographical territory during the meeting after Mr. Johnson asked Macron how he'd feel if there were barriers to start selling sausages from Toulouse in Paris. And they added the president wanted to see the stress that the situation was quite different and that it was not appropriate to make this kind of comparison. So the row comes amid ongoing problems with the post-Brexit Northern Ireland protocol. And with that discussion, the policy was designed to protect the Good Friday Agreement by ensuring that the borders would not be introduced on the island of Ireland. So this is just something that they want to prevent, and they are trying to do this as much as possible. So with that regards, though, we are saying, like I said, there has been issues with this regard, and they don't want to put any sort of a physical border. And this is something that they want to avoid at all costs, especially the UK. They don't want to do this. This is all, to protect the Good Friday Agreement. And there has been, issues with this, ensuring there's not going to be any sort of these introductions of borders. And it sees Northern Ireland continues to follow many of the EU rules on trade. So as a result, it's created a regulatory border in the Irish Sea, leading to additional checks on items moved between the Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So right now, the so-called grace periods were introduced after the post-Brexit trade deal came into force, allowing goods to continue to move as normal while people adjusted to the new way of working. So like I said, this whole thing started with the UK setting up their borders and setting up these grace periods and extending it on their behalf, unilaterally rather, extending it. This is the term that they are using, unilaterally extending all this without the consent from the EU. So right now it stands though the controls will be introduced from July on chilled meat products like sausages and mince, effectively banning them from entering Northern Ireland unless the UK agrees to match EU standards on its products. So Northern Ireland is going to be facing issues with regards to this. They're not going to be getting sausages or chilled sausages or mince. So there's not going to be any more mince when it comes to issues like this. And the UK has already unilaterally extended some grace periods, leading to a legal action from the EU. But Ireland's Taoiseach, or Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, warned it would be very problematic if the UK did the same again, telling a lot of media sources that it would strain relationship between the UK and the EU. And he added that it was not about sausages per se. It's not really about that, but it's really about the fact that an agreement had been entered into not too long ago. And if there's consistent unilateral deviation from that agreement, well, that clearly undermines the broader relationship between the European Union and the United Kingdom, which is in nobody's interest. We don't want to do this. We want to avoid this. We want to prevent this at all costs. So with that regard, asked by, a lot of these people and media sources and sites, they've asked whether the Prime Minister was offended by the alleged comments from the French president, Mr. Johnson did not answer. And he went on to say, instead saying it was the job of the government of the United Kingdom to uphold the territorial integrity of the United Kingdom. And he also said Brexit accounted for a vanishingly small proportion of our deliberations at the G7 summit. So, but when he was pushed further by a lot of the reporters, the French president's alleged remarks, Mr. Johnson said he and the rest of the government make the point continuously that we are all part of one great indivisible United Kingdom. So he's saying that, with all this going on, with all the situation that is happening, we are still one and we still stick together as much as we can. And earlier, Mr. Raab said the sentiment about Northern Ireland being separate from the rest of the UK had been expressed by EU figures for years, and that is wrong. And he went on and said, it is a failure to understand the facts. It is a failure to appreciate what speaking about Northern Ireland in those terms and approaching the issue of the Northern Ireland Protocol in those terms does. So he went on to say that, it causes damage to businesses from both communities in Northern Ireland, creates deep consternation, and we wouldn't talk about Catalonia and the Barcelona or Corsica in France in those ways either. So they're saying, okay, these are things that we won't even talk about. These other countries have their same situations as well. So you don't see us talking about these particular things. But President Macron later appealed for calm, saying France has never allowed itself to question British sovereignty, the integrity of the British territory, and the respect of the sovereignty. And it's also true that Brexit is the child of British sovereignty and has created thousands of hours of work for European leaders. So we know very well that what is this whole British sovereignty is. So he added, for a number of years after Brexit was established, we established rules, a protocol agreement, and a commercial treaty for future relations. We just want them to be respected seriously, calmly, professionally, and that is all. So this is, the things that the president of France, was discussing and talking about with that regards. So at an international summit, it is generally a good rule to keep discussions about sausages confined to the barbecue on the beach. I mean, yes, when you think about this is how they're supposed to be doing it. But then the UK allowed its role with the EU over post-Brexit trade across the Irish Sea to overshadow the G7 raised eyebrows among the diplomats. This raised a lot of eyebrows, with a lot of these diplomats as well. So they say, we can't understand why Boris is putting more petrol on the fire, one official said. And at the news conference, the Prime Minister sought to dampen the flames, refusing to echo Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, who said President Macron's suggestion that Northern Ireland was not part of the UK was just plain offensive. And the damage had already been done, though. It's already happened. And yes, the trade deal was not part of the main G7 negotiation, but it was central to discussions in the margins. So this wasn't the main topic that they wanted to talk about. They wanted to talk about other things, but then this came up and they did talk about this. So the damage had already been done. And even Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he had raised the issue in his bilateral meeting with Mr. Johnson, emphasizing Canada's role in forging the Good Friday Agreement. So instead of using the congenial confines of a highly secure beach in west of England to engender a bit of trust, both sides seem to come away from the Cornwall with hackles raised. So they're saying, all these things with regards, there's been issues with regards to this. So ahead of a meeting at the G7 attended by the leaders of EU, France, Germany, and Italy, top EU officials Maros Sefcovic said the bloc's patience was wearing thin with the UK, and they're saying, insisting it needed to follow the rules it agreed on the Northern Ireland Protocol, or in other words, the Good Friday Protocol. But during the summit, Mr. Johnson said he would do whatever it takes to protect the territorial integrity of the UK, and he went on to say that there was quite a lot of misunderstanding around the EU about the situation in Northern Ireland and the balance of the Good Friday Protocol. And he hoped that the two sides would find these pragmatic solutions. They will find situations with regards to this. So hopefully this is something that will not rise and cause more issues as of yet. They're trying to calm this down as much as possible. This is something that, like I said, they're trying to say this is something that the EU is just involved in. They are trying to poke flames, and they're trying to poke a response from the UK. The UK is trying to stay calm with this regards. More on that and a whole lot more. And we're going to be taking a real quick break, though. Taking a look at your time, it is 5:14. Good evening.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly, one, because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company until 6 p.m. Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, there's a little bit of a technical issue right there. But yeah, we sorted that out. And yeah, we're keeping you guys company all the way until 6. And yeah, if you have a dedication or a shout out, you want to say anything at all, well, hit me up. Or if you have something that you want to know about, well, hit me up. And if I can answer, well, I'll definitely answer it for you. It is 07852-473-473. Those are the magical numbers. That's right. We're talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK with with the whole Northern Ireland situation, the G7 summit, and all talks with the delaying of the lockdown as well. There is concerns of that as well. There has been, because of that, there has been issues with that regard. So right now, one of the biggest problems is that theater and music companies are going to be facing lockdown reopening delay catastrophes. So there's going to be a big catastrophe with that regards to these particular businesses as well, because right now in the UK, these particular businesses are suffering. One of the businesses that are suffering the worst. So theaters and live music risk imminent catastrophe. Even final collapse as a full return of the full capacity events is delayed. Industry figures have said. I mean, they're saying all these things, and they're saying, okay, what's going to happen is the numbers are going to drop, and we're going to be facing a catastrophe, and of all these things, that they're discussing. When you look at the figures, when you look at the exact figures, West End producer Sonia Friedman warned that many livelihoods are under existential threat. That this is from the delay, which is expected to be confirmed later. And like I said, these are delays that happened in the UK. It's because of the delay right now that a lot of these livelihoods, like I said, are going to be under a lot of problems. And and another theater impresario, Sir Howard Panter, said the ramifications would be extremely serious. There's going to be big consequences with regards to this particular thing. So social distancing is likely to remain at venues until at least the 19th of July. So the government had originally penciled in 21st of June as the day to lift all restrictions in England, but that is now expected to be pushed back by a minimum of 4 weeks as a result of the rise of the Delta variant. So right now, the Delta variant, like I said, is making us, it's showing its face, it's rearing its ugly head in, and it's showing us like, hey, but right now the UK is prepared. We are taking the necessary precautions that we need to do. But there is a lot of these businesses that we're holding, they are risking, and they are, at the high stakes right now with that regards to this. And the stakes are high when it comes to these big companies as well. And they are struggling financially, and they're saying that they're currently at their brink, and it is a problem with that regard. So these big companies are facing these problems, and producers say large scale shows are not financially viable and are currently at a 50% capacity limit. So this is of concern. This is a problem, and this is one of the reasons why they are struggling and why they're having problems of their own with that regards. And taking a look at all these things, well, Andrew Lloyd Webber recently said he was prepared to be arrested if he couldn't open his musical Cinderella as planned on the 25th of June. But look, this is the thing. You say you can open it, but if you do, what's going to happen is it's just going to cause closure, and that's just going to be a problem right there. And Andrew Lloyd, like he said, he's prepared to be arrested even for something like this. So Sir Howard has been planning to open the musicals Anything Goes and Jersey Boys in late July, but those are now in the balance. So some major shows will be opening with the social distancing on the 21st of June, including the musical Hairspray at the London Coliseum. So they are saying, they're losing a lot of money. It's awful, and the situation is bad, and we are struggling. It's a big blow for a lot of performers, artists, singers, and these theaters as well, live music. So we are facing the brunt of all of this. They're saying if we don't open the country, and if they're going to push the dates, this is just going to be more problem, and this is just going to cause a rise in the situation. So with that regard, so there has been talks about this whole thing, and it's a big problem when you talk and when you discuss these things. There has been issues with regards to this, and people have noticed, okay, the country is moving. They're trying to be protective, and they're trying to be cautious, and they're trying to safeguard the country. But at the same time, these businesses are going to be losing their livelihoods, and that's not the only industry though. When you look at other industries, soft sport industries as well, soft play industries, these are also industries that are going to be facing a lot. The hospitality industry, tourism. Well, these are also things that people depend on, and they need money from this. And yet this lockdown is just pushing the inevitable. The inevitable is that they are going to be facing massive losses, and there's going to be massive losses with regard to this. So it just shows right now the situation is not as clear cut as we'd like to notice. It's not as clear cut as you'd like to think. And yet the situation is getting problematic, and it's a critical impact on businesses. So delaying all of these lockdowns right now, delaying the lockdown easing, will have critical impacts on a lot of these businesses. And with that regard, a lot of these businesses will be facing a big problem. And the problem is delaying this lockdown has been just having critical effects on already struggling businesses and cost UK hospitality £3 billion in lost sales, the industry group says. So the government is expected to say that current coronavirus rules will remain in place for another 4 weeks after the planned 21st of June unlocking. So right now, capacity limits will remain in pubs, and cinemas and nightclubs will stay shut. But Junior Health Minister Ed Argar has said he expected to be more help and aid to help these businesses to cope up. So they're expecting a lot of these things as well. But, with that delay and with these mounting issues right now, it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. And it feels like we're treating this and we're treading over water at the moment, but we're not able to progress and make a decent profit. So we're not at risk of going under, but it's very, very difficult and challenging to go forward. So for now, the numbers of covers that will be, that they will be doing each night will be down by 40%. This is what a lot of these restaurants and bars are saying. They're saying, okay, we're not running at full capacity. We are struggling. We're trying to cope with all of these regards. So ministers have been concerned about the spread of the COVID-19, the Delta variant as of moment, and now the most prevalent in the UK, and which is spread around 60% more transmissible than the Alpha variants first identified in Kent. And UK Hospitality, which represents pubs, bars, and restaurants, said it recognized the government had a balance to strike, but it said many businesses were already deeply in debt and called for greater levels of government support. So the government right now, they're asking for more support with regards to this. And with regards to all these matters, they're talking about these things, and they're saying we need more support. We need more help and aid from the government, and the government needs to do all these things, but they're not doing it. So what are we going to do if they delay the lifting of the lockdowns? It's just going to be a struggle for all of us. And even now, with partial reopening, sector sales remain bound below 42%, and 300,000 jobs remain protected by the furlough scheme. This is, just some of the things that is going right now. And like I said, nightclubs they've been closed since March 2020, and this has been going on for some time now. It's been almost a year since they've been closed. And with that regards, a lot of these nightclubs also are struggling, and the businesses are, they're facing issues with this businesses as well. So the Treasury has eligible businesses will continue to benefit from business rates relief, VAT reduction, and the recovery loan scheme. So they said that these eligible businesses will benefit from all of this recovery loan scheme, but the furlough scheme and support for the self-employed is in place until September. So business groups want the Chancellor to go even further. They want even more. And the British Chambers of Commerce, or the BCC, said business support measures should reflect the level of restrictions announced and remain in place until the economy is able to fully reopen. So right now, we would be calling for the government to provide further cash grants, at least equivalent to levels provided during the first lockdown, and to delay the tapering of the government's payments into the furlough scheme. And this is all planned for the start of July. So the government should also be looking at extending the trade credit insurance scheme beyond the end of June to minimize possible disruptions in insurance coverage. So Junior Health Minister Ed Argar has said, I know that when the Prime Minister addresses his decision, sets out what he intends to do around the easing on the 21st, he will address those points as well. So he will address all these things. And people are having issues when it comes to the furlough scheme, and with all regards to all of those things, that is going on. There has been concerns, and they have been voicing their opinions with that regards. And they're saying, okay, listen, our businesses are going to fail, but the government does, reassure them and has assured them, has been assertive about this whole thing. And they said, okay, this is the thing. What we're going to do is the companies and businesses that are going to be eligible for this, the Treasury is saying this, will continue to benefit from all this business rates relief, the VAT reductions, and the recovery loan schemes. So the furlough scheme will be there until September. So this is going to be happening. So there's nothing to worry about. We can handle this. I mean, yes, are we facing losses? That's true. We are, but we are, going to go through this together as one. This is what the government has been saying, and they're trying to make clear on this particular part. More than that and a lot more. We're going to be taking a real quick break, taking a look at your chart right now. It is 5:35. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
You should be able to cycle there.
Oh.
welcome back to the show. It is Relax Radio, RELAKS, where we believe in positivity and none of that disappointing stuff and negative stuff. We try to believe in all that good stuff. And hey, my name is Nick, and I'm keeping you company all the way until the tender time of 6 p.m. That's right. You can make sure you guys can be a part of the show. Hit me up. Let me know what your thoughts are. And our numbers are 078-52473-473. Those are right. That's right. You can feel free to call me up on those numbers anytime, whenever you feel like it. I mean, hey, I'll always be ready to pick your calls up. And yeah, with that regards, though, we have been having a lot of these discussions and talks with, what is going on. And there has been a lot of these talks going on with the lockdown easing and the situation in the country. And, taking a look at all things that is going on right now. Well, there has been a rising number of other issues as well. When you take a look at Scotland as well, they're having these talks. Right now their fans have been disappointed as Scotland lose the opening Euro match. There, I mean, it wasn't one of the greatest matches that you've seen. Yes, definitely, it wasn't as something that was memorable, but it was unfortunate, that they had to lose like that, and there were issues with that regards. They were talking about, how fans were not completely happy with the outcome of that particular match. And looking at things, it's just, there's been a lot of these talks as well. And looking at the situation right now, in Wales, the issue in Wales is they're saying, England's 21st of June lockdown plan not sensible is what the Welsh minister is saying at the moment, and she's talking with this regards, with this particular matter. And the original plans to scrap COVID lockdown rules in England on the 21st of June were never considered sensible by the Welsh government. A Labour minister has said all these things. So sources have said that UK ministers have agreed a delay of 4 weeks to axing of the social contact restrictions. So the Wales's economy minister, Minister Vaughan Getting, said it would not be right to set things out such a commitment when the pandemic caused unpleasant surprises. And this is definitely a surprise. I mean, that's the better way of putting things. I mean, yes, this has been an unpleasant surprise, the Indian variant. So the UK government announcement is expected later. So the expectation of a delay to the England's so-called Freedom Day follows a rise in COVID cases linked to the Delta variant. This was originally identified in India. And Mr. Getting said, we have always said that they're trying to set out commitments to an irreversible road to freedom. So when we know that the pandemic has caused different and unpleasant surprises at various points, was not something that we thought was sensible. So they're saying that, the UK's decisions on this particular matter and the way they've handled this, and they promised all these things when they know that a virus like this, of this capacity, of this magnitude, is going to affect us even longer. I mean, they were saying that it's not just sensible. So he added that the Welsh government had not taken a flyer on naming dates for lockdown easing, and as a result had not had to do a number of the U-turns. So Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to confirm the delay at a news conference later in the evening. And looking at all things right now, Wales understands First Minister Mark Drakeford spoke to Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove on Monday afternoon. And ministers in Wales are expected to announce their own decisions this Friday about whether to ease restrictions further, although it is not as comprehensive as what has been planned across the border. So with that regards and with that expectation, though, there has been talks with this, and they will be talking about all these things, and they will be coming up to a point, and they will come and meet to a point where they will have to make decisions on this particular matter. And the Welsh government is looking at whether to allow some people to meet indoors outside of their extended bubbles, a move that has been delayed amidst the growing concerns over the COVID variant. That is the Delta variant right there. And Mr. Getting told the press conference that there are at least 315 cases of variant in Wales, with 42 cases identified across England and Scotland as well. So despite our extensive efforts to minimize the spread, we expect to see more, is what Mr. Getting is saying. And the variant is now the most common strain among new COVID-19 cases. And Mr. Getting said that the Welsh government would put further funding in place for business and materially affected by the phase moved to alert level 1. So eligible business such as indoor attractions and wedding venues will be entitled to an additional payment of between £875 to £5,000, depending on their size and circumstances, he said. Meanwhile, the minister urged Welsh football fans to do the right thing and when watching the Euro 2020 games in pubs and clubs, advising them to follow the necessary rules on social distancing. So he went on to say, we don't want to be in an unfortunate position where we have to re-regulate what's going on in those businesses. So with that regards, like I said, there has been talks with with this particular thing as well, and they're saying fans need to watch out even more and make sure that they are in a safe place, safe position, and they make sure that they don't spread the virus unnecessarily. And with that regards, like I said, the Welsh government right now is making sure they're looking at things tentatively, rather, and they're trying to the point, and they're saying, okay, we're going to do a review on this, and hopefully by the 25th or 24th is when they will do a complete review on this and make sure that their country, Wales rather, opens up again. And so they're reviewing the situation, and looking at all the things that is going on. This has been a roller coaster of a ride. I mean, looking at the things, the way the UK is going, how England has pushed their dates, it's reverberating across the UK right now, and a lot of the other countries in the UK as well have been, questioning their decisions with regards to this particular matter, and they're wondering, okay, whether we should move forward with this or not is of concern. I mean, this is also a big problem right now in the UK, and like I said, Wales is also looking at all this, and they say how unfortunate it is, and it was just not sensible decision for England to even be saying something like this. I mean, what are those guys even going on about? I mean, these are things that they are discussing, and they're saying they are going to be looking into this. The more we go and we try to move forward with this regards. So hopefully they can find an alternative to all of these things. And with that said, though, looking at the other things that is on today's topics that we're talking about is how the UK government pledges a nature positive future. That's right. So the government is to table an amendment to the Environment Bill that will require the major national infrastructure projects to provide a net gain for nature. So the UK government is going ahead with its plans, and it's saying, okay, listen, we are trying to create a positive nature, positive future. And it says that it will aim to implement the second leg of high-speed railways, the HS2, in a nature-positive way. So ministers were responding to a landmark independent review calling for nature to be at the heart of economic policy. And the report said prosperity has come at a devastating cost to nature. So what's the Dasgupta review? Well, the eponymous review by Professor Sir Partha Dasgupta of the University of Cambridge was commissioned by the Treasury in 2019 and published in February this year. So the message was stark. The world needs to fundamentally overhaul how it measures economic success to stem the decline in nature that threatens lives and livelihoods. So the 600-page report said prosperity had come at a devastating cost to the natural world and proposed recognizing nature as an asset and reconsidering our measures of economic prosperity. So how have ministers responded? Well, in its response to the review, the government said it committed to delivering a nature-positive review. So the professor, he wrote about this review and he discussed about this in detail, and in that regards, they were talking about all these things, and they were saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. The cost of the prosperity that we have has come at a devastating cost to the natural world. So the government is saying that they're trying to move forward with a nature-positive future, and it proposes amending the environmental bill. That is a key piece of legislation that is currently passing through Parliament to ensure new nationally significant infrastructure projects in England, such as future transport and energy projects, will provide net gains for the nature. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to come up with new ways and new sort of things to handle on all these things. So Kemi Badanu, the Executive Secretary to the Treasury, said response to the review set out the ways in which the government will go further to ensure our economy supports nature and wildlife, from infrastructures at home to bilateral aid spending overseas. So, these are things, that they will be handling. And they said, okay, this is how we're going to have a look into this. And the government said that they're pledging, and they're saying, okay, we're trying to make sure that we keep up with a positive nature and a positive, for the nature, by the nature kind of thing, a positive nature, positive future is what they're trying to say. I mean, there's a lot of positive there. But yes, looking at things from a positive light. This is what they want to do. This is what they're trying to bring into effect. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully, they can make sure that this comes into a fruitful effect. Rather, this will bear fruit. Hopefully, in the coming of the years. I mean, I hope they can keep their pledges. And with that regards, and with that being said, we're going to be taking a real short, quick break before we reach the final leg of our show. And taking a look at your time, it is 5:50. Good evening.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Welcome back to the final stretch of the show. This is Real Talk with me, Nick, keeping you company and keeping you guys up to date and informed with the current events right now that is going on across the UK, in and around the UK, and around the world. So, like I said, NATO has been warning of a military challenge posed by China. Yes, that is something that they want to discuss on with that particular regards. Yes, there is talks with regards to this, and they are discussing about this particular matter at hand. So, yeah, in case you guys have any opinions or thoughts on that particular subject, well, hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. Also, don't forget you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day, 365, 24/7. Also, don't forget to check us out on our social media pages. We're pretty much big on Instagram. We're pretty big on Facebook. Like us, follow us, share us, and also on YouTube as well. And with that being said, though, the topic at hand, like I said, NATO warns of military challenge posed by China. So China and NATO has been warning of a military challenge by China, and they say that the NATO leaders meeting for a summit in Brussels have warned of the military threat posed by China, saying its behavior is a systemic challenge. And they say that China, they said, was rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and was opaque about its military modernization and was cooperating militarily with Russia. So NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warned China was coming closer to NATO in military and technological terms. But he stressed the alliance did not want a new Cold War with China. And NATO is a powerful and military alliance between 30 European countries and the North American countries. It was established after World War II in response to the threat of the communist expansion. So this was how it was formed and all of that. So in recent years, the alliance came under strain as leaders debated its purpose and funding. So tensions grew during the presidency of Donald Trump, who complained about these countries' financial contributions to the alliance and questioned the U.S. commitment to defend European partners. So it is his successor, Joe Biden's first NATO meeting since taking office, and the new president has sought to reassert American backing for the 72-year-old alliance. And he went on to say, Mr. Biden said that, I want to make it clear, NATO is critically important for U.S. interests. His country, he said, had a sacred obligation to observe Article 5 of NATO's founding treaty, which commits members to defend each other from attack. So the NATO leader also agreed to keep Kabul airport running as the U.S. and its allies withdraw troops from Afghanistan. So why is NATO focusing on China at the moment? Well, according to the summit's communique, or the concluding statement, China's stated ambitious and assertive behavior present systemic challenges to the rules-based international order and to areas relevant to alliance security. So we remain concerned with China's frequent lack of transparency and use of disinformation. This is what it says in the communique. Well, Mr. Stoltenberg also said to the reporters recently that they wanted to talk about this, and that they said that we are not entering a new Cold War, and China is not our adversary, not our enemy. So they're saying that China is not our adversary, not our enemy. But they added, we need to address together as the alliance the challenges that the rise of China poses to our security. I mean, this sounds a little bit of fishy when you think about this, and when you look at this particular matter. Well, it does sound like there's going to be another problem. Hopefully this doesn't rise into a problem. I mean, they will sort this out in some way or the other. But China is also one of the leading military and economic powers whose ruling Communist Party has a tight grip on politics, daily life, and much of society. So NATO has become increasingly concerned about the growing military capabilities of China, which it sees as a threat to security and democratic values of its members. So in recent years, the alliance has grown wary of China's activities in Africa, where it has set up army bases. So with that, in mind, what is this whole NATO thing? What are they? Are they a dish? Well, NATO is not actually that. It is, like I said, a military and a political and military organization. So what it does is, it is essentially the full form of NATO is the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO, is the world's most powerful regional defense alliance. So it's an alliance of these 30 European countries and Northern American countries as well. So it was set back in 1949 after World War II to counter the threat of communist expansion. So it was founded on the principle of collective defense between allies. So it originally had 12 members, but now has 30 members. So UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said, when it comes to China, I don't think anybody around the table wants to descend into a new Cold War with China. So NATO's tough message on China will follow criticism of the country by the G7, a group of major economies that met for a summit in England last week. So in the G7, they're talking about this particular matter. So in a communique, the G7 leaders criticized China for their alleged human rights abuses and demand a transparent investigation of the origins of the COVID-19 in the country. And in response, China, the embassy in China rather, has accused the G7 of lies, rumors, and baseless accusations in a statement through its embassy in the UK. So this is all, there is a lot of back and forth with this particular matter and with this regards. So right now they're talking about this, and America and its NATO allies have been withdrawing troops from Afghanistan since President Biden announced in April that all U.S. forces would leave the country by the 11th of September. So they've been deployed there for nearly 20 years, initially in response to the 9/11 attacks on America. So this was a long time ago. If you look at the matter, they've been there for nearly 20 years. That's right. So since the announcement, there has been a surge in violence across the country, which the government, the U.S., and the NATO blame on the Taliban, a hardline Islamic movement. So they blame all this, violence right now in the country. That it's mostly got to do with the Taliban. So in the communique, NATO says it will provide a transitional funding to ensure continued functioning of Hamid Karzai International Airport, recognizing its importance to an enduring diplomatic and international presence, as well as to Afghanistan's connectivity with the world. So alliance member Turkey has offered to guard and operate the airport after other troops leave. So the alliance also promises to continue to provide training and financial support for Afghanistan's security forces. So there's been a lot of these talks and agendas on the G7, and climate change, cybersecurity, and Russia were also on the agenda for the Brussels summit. So this is also what they're going to be talking about in the NATO summit as well. So these are just, some of the things that they are be talking about, and you can be expecting, the discussions that they will be talking about on their agenda. And yeah, like I said, China is also pretty much of a big threat when it comes to their military power. We don't really know, and NATO doesn't really know the exact strength and capabilities of China. But at the moment, they are being wary, and they're saying that, okay, this is the thing. We don't want any sort of Cold War with China, and we are not looking at them as an adversary or as an enemy. So, we're trying to trying to settle things diplomatically as possible. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is something that they can do along the way. And with that being said, it is about that time of the day for me to head on out of here, bounce out of here. Make sure, you guys keep it locked tomorrow, because I will be here same time, same place, only on a Real Talk right here at Relax Radio. And with that, my name is Nick, and I'm out of here. Peace and much love.